Hey, I'm Kez Bracey, and in this tutorial for Slider Revolution, you're going to learn how to create a hamburger drop-down menu. I'm going to start by giving you a quick demonstration with a preview of this template that I've already built. I'm going to go into the mobile preview. When we hit the little hamburger icon, we get a drop-down menu. We can hit the X icon to close that menu again. This is available at different sizes. And then when we are at a normal desktop size, we just have a regular horizontal menu. So the reason that this is called a hamburger menu is because these little lines here, typically 3 lines, look a little bit like a hamburger. The reason that hamburger menus exist is that sometimes there's not enough room to have a full width menu on a smaller screen. So we hide the menu, collapse it into a smaller space and make it available on demand with this touch-friendly icon here. We can make this hamburger menu with no coding. Everything is going to be done with visual tools right inside Slider Revolution. We're going to be putting this hamburger menu together in 4 steps. In the first step, we're going to create this header area here and the burger button. In step 2, we're going to make the menus, the vertical drop-down menu here, and the horizontal menu that we have in the desktop mode. In the third step, we're going to add animation to our vertical menu so it animates its way open and closed. And in the fourth step, we're going to connect our hamburger icon to this vertical menu so that it triggers it to open and close when it's tapped. All right, let's get started. So I'm here in the admin area for Slider Revolution. If this is your first time using the plugin, then after you've installed it and activated it, you're going to see a menu on the left side here, which you can click to enter this part of the plugin. We are going to be making a brand new module from scratch. So to do that, click this button here. And we're going to use this quick start wizard, this guide, to help us get started with this module. So I'm going to click Start Guide. From here, I'm going to click Scene. We're not making a slider or a carousel, so basically everything that isn't a slider or carousel is a scene. So we'll choose that and click Next Step. We're going to choose Full Width because we want our menu to stretch the full width of our website. And then we'll click Next Step. And as for how we're going to handle resizing the menu, for our 4 different sizes, desktop, notebook, tablet, mobile, we're going to choose classic linear resizing. And then we're done. Now we can click Go to Editor. All right, now the first thing you're probably going to want to do before you even get started making your menu is to give your module a name so that when you want to add it into a page, you can find it easily. So we're going to call this one Hamburger Menu. And we'll give it an alias. We'll just call it Burger Menu. So now when we want to add it into a page, all we have to do is look for the module that's called Hamburger Menu. All right, so now let's get started on the actual building process. Step 1 is to make the header and the burger icon. So what we're going to do is start by adding a new group because we're going to have a site title, a button, all contained inside this header area. So we'll set that up as a group from the very beginning so that we can keep things nice and organized. So we're going to come down here to the timeline and double click, and then we can rename this layer to header. It's always a good idea to name your layers as you go along to help you keep track of what's going on in your module. Now let's set up its sizing and its alignment. Make sure that you have it selected and then come up to the right sidebar and choose size and position. You need to make sure that you have this tab active, the layer options tab, so that you can edit the layer. We're going to click this button here to align this group to the top. We want it to stretch the full width of our content. So you can see this blue dotted line here represents the width of the content at the desktop size. To make the group fit that full size, we're going to come down to size presets and we're going to choose full width. So then that automatically stretches that group out to the full width of our content. Now the last thing that we need to do is set a fixed height for our group. And in this case, we're going to give it a height of 65 pixels. So we're going to come up to this height field and just enter 65px and hit the enter key. At the moment, by default, this group is just transparent. It just has a transparent background. We want to give it a colored background though. So we're going to select it, choose the style button here. Here are our background controls, and we're going to change this from transparent. So we're going to click this little swatch icon here. This gives us the color selection dialog, and from here we can pick any color we like, but to make things quick and easy, we're just going to choose one of the presets. We're going to choose this blue here, and then to commit that change, we'll hit this tick button. So right now, by default, we are viewing the desktop mode of this module, But if we come up to this little area here and hover, you'll see that we've got the notebook, tablet, and mobile views as well. So we need to start by activating all 4 of those. And we're going to go through and make sure that our hamburger menu works on all 4 of those sizes. So first, we just need to toggle all of these on. And then to preview how our header area looks so far, we can click this button here to switch to notebook view. So there we go. You can see how that has adjusted its width, but it's kept its height and its position for the notebook size. We can do the same thing for a tablet and the same thing for mobile. And for most of the things that we're going to work on in this burger menu, we're going to start in the desktop mode, because automatically the settings that you add to an item in desktop mode will be inherited by notebook, tablet, and mobile mode. So generally speaking, you're going to start by creating your layers in desktop mode and then make adjustments to the smaller sizes afterwards. Okay, so next up we're going to add a site title in. Pretty much any header on any website is going to have the title or the business name in the header area. So we're going to need to add a text item. So we'll just come up to add layer and choose text. So here's our new layer. Let's drag this up into the header group. And you'll notice that when I drag the text inside the header group on the canvas, it automatically became nested inside the header group on the timeline as well. So let's start by renaming this layer also. We're just going to name it site title. And we'll do the same thing with the content. We're just going to replace this with the words site title, just a placeholder. Now let's give it a little styling. So we're going to go into the style section. We'll leave the font set to be Roboto, that's fine. And the white color is fine as well, but we're going to increase the text size. So we're going to up it to 25 pixels. And we're also going to make the text bold. So in this area, click this drop down and then you can choose 700 bold. So there's our site title. That's all the styling we need for this, but now we need to fix up its alignment. So what we're going to end up with is in the desktop mode, the site title is going to be aligned on the left, and in the other sizes, it's going to be centered. The way that we're going to set up this alignment is first, we're going to left align this text for the desktop mode. Then we're going to center it for the notebook mode. And the reason that we'll do that is because the tablet and mobile modes can then inherit the alignment for this text from the notebook mode. So if that doesn't make sense yet, don't worry, we're going to step through it. So we're in desktop mode right now. Let's select our site title again. We're aligning, so let's choose size and position. Now we're going to hit this button here to push the text over to the left. And we'll hit this button here to make sure that it's correctly vertically aligned. Now we don't want the text to be sitting flush against the edge here, so we need to offset it a little bit from the edge. So in this field here marked X, X represents the horizontal axis, we're just going to enter 30 pixels, and that's going to offset that text 30 pixels from the left. Now let's switch into notebook mode. We still have the left aligned text, which was inherited from that higher size. So now we need to override that. Here, all we need to do is press this button here to centrally align our text. And now all the smaller sizes will inherit that setting that we just changed. We'll go into tablet mode, and there it's centered. Mobile mode, it's centered. But if we go back to desktop mode, it's still aligned on the left. So just bear that in mind. Make your changes from the largest size through to the smallest. Now we have only one more thing to add to our header area, and that is our burger button. So we're going to come up to add layer again, and we're going to choose button. Now here we've got a bunch of pre-made buttons that we can use, and if we scroll down a little bit further, then we've got a bunch of ready-made burger icons that can just be used as they are. Everything is already set up to trigger animations, so there's nothing extra to do. You just click the burger icon that you want to use. This one is a good fit for the colors that we have going, so just click that. And that has entered that onto the canvas, and you can see the layer down here as well. Now we can close out this pop-up sidebar. Now we just want to drag this over to the right here. Once again, that has allowed that to be automatically nested inside the header group. And let's rename this to Burger Button. Now let's align it. We're already in size and position, so let's hit the right align button to get that flush with the edge. We'll hit the middle align button to get that vertically centered. Now, We don't want that to be right up against the edge because it looks a little bit odd that there's so much more spacing above and below the burger icon compared to how much spacing there is on the right side. So we're going to select that. Now we're going to change the X offset again, just like we did with the site title. This time, the value that we input there is going to determine how far the button is being pushed from the right side. So because this is active, this field now is going to push the icon away from that right side. We're going to offset this by 15 pixels. So just type in 15 px and hit enter. And now our icon is nicely aligned. And we are going to make one more adjustment to this alignment. If I select the button again and I click inside this field here, we can see that it shows us what the X offset values are on the different sizes. And you'll notice that it's decreasing that number. And the reason that happens is usually it's very helpful if you decrease the amount of spacing there is on the left and right of items as the amount of space that you have decreases. In this case though, we do have plenty of space in our header area here, so we're going to override those settings. So we're going to go into notebook mode and we're going to change that to 15 pixels as well. Then we'll go into tablet mode, do the same thing, 15, into mobile mode, 15. And now our spacing is consistent across all of our different views. All right, now we don't actually want this icon to appear when we're in desktop mode. It doesn't need to be there because we're going to have a horizontal menu showing by default anyway. So we're going to select our burger icon and we're going to go into the visibility section here. And you'll see this shows us which of the different views this currently selected layer is visible on. We don't want it to be visible in desktop mode, so we're going to turn desktop off here. So now it's hidden on desktop mode, but it's visible on all the other modes. So let's save that. And we'll have a quick preview of how it looks so far. So there we go, desktop mode with the left aligned title and no icon. And then we have the center aligned title and the burger icon on all of the other modes. All right, so that is step 1 complete. Step 2 is creating our 2 types of menus. So we have our vertical drop-down menu that we're going to have in our mobile device views. And then we have our horizontal menu that's only going to show at desktop sizes. So once again, we're going to start in desktop mode. And we're going to add another group just to help keep everything organized. So let's add another layer and we'll add our group. We're going to name this one vertical menu. We're going to make the vertical menu first, then we'll make the horizontal menu. So vertical menu. And what we want to do is position this vertical menu so that it's directly underneath the header area that we just created. So we're going to go into size and position. We know that our header is 65 pixels high, so if we want this group to appear just at the bottom of our header, then we need to have it positioned at 65 pixels on the vertical axis. Y represents the vertical axis, so we'll just change this number to 65, and that positions it along the bottom of our header. Now we want it to be the full width of our content area, just like our first group. So we're going to choose size presets, full width again. We need to add a background color to this, just like we have our header area. So we're going to go into style. We're going to choose background color. And once again, we'll just choose that same blue and press the tick box. Now we're going to add in some link items inside this group. They'll be the menu items. So we're going to go up to add layer again and choose text. We'll drag that inside our vertical menu group. And just checking down on the timeline here, this one hasn't automatically nested itself. So let's just drag that inside our vertical menu. And we're going to call this one home. We're just going to make a home link out of this text. Now just to pause before we go on editing this text, you'll notice that now that we've added something inside this group, we can properly see the background color of it in comparison to the header. And you'll see that there's not really any distinction between the header and the menu here. So to create a bit of visual distinction between the header and this drop-down vertical menu, we're going to select our group again and we're going to add a border just along the top. So make sure that you're in the style section and then down here in the border section, hit the border style drop-down and choose solid. And then this box here, you'll see that there's a little square with a line across the top. That represents the top border. So we're going to change that top border size to 1 pixel, and then we're going to change the color. We're going to start with white, but we don't want it to be a really strong color. We just want it to be subtle. So we're going to take our white color and we're going to reduce our opacity. So we're going to change that down to 25% opacity, and that's going to let a bit of the background blue come through. So it'll be a nice blended soft color. So we'll hit that tick box. And now you can see we've got this nice subtle line in between our two groups to help give us that visual distinction. All right, now back to styling our link. So this is going to be our home link. So first we'll go into content and we'll just change the text so it reads home. Let's control the style a bit more. We don't need to do too much to this. The font size is already fine, but what we will do is just change it to a bold weight. And now we just need to set up its alignment. So we'll go into size and position. You'll recall that a moment ago we set our site title to be 30 pixels from the left. So let's do the same thing with our home button. We'll change the X offset value to 30 pixels as well. Then you'll notice that we already have the top alignment button set here. So let's change it to be 30 pixels offset from the top as well. So 30 from the top, 30 from the left gives us a nice amount of spacing around this item. Now, to make sure that visitors to the site know that this is a link, it's always a good idea to give some type of interactivity. So when they hover over this link, we're going to want it to change color. So to do that, let's select the link and we'll come into this hover section here. You can leave these two settings as they are and just come down to the animation drop-down list and change that to enabled. And then all we need to do is change the text color so that when the item is hovered over, the text color will change. So we'll click this little swatch here. Again, we're just going to choose one of the pre-baked colors. So we'll choose yellow and we'll hit the tick box. So now when we hover over the item, you'll see it turn yellow, and that will fade in and out as you hover over and then leave the hovering state. And then the last thing to do, because this is of course a link, is to add the actual link functionality. So we'll click our link item, then we'll come to actions, and then there are typically two things that you're going to choose from here. One is you might choose a simple link. If you click that, it will add this pink line in here where you can decide what you want to happen when somebody clicks on this link. In the case of a simple link, you enter the URL of the site that you want the person to be able to visit. So that might be something as simple as the homepage of your website. So if that's the case, you might just do something like https mysite.com, for example. And the other thing that you might want to do is if you are building a landing page of some description out of multiple Slider Revolution modules, then you can give each module an ID and then you can add a link to scroll to that ID. Then if you provide the ID of a module that's on the same page in this field here, the page will just fluidly scroll down to the location of that module within the page. But for the purposes of this, we're just going to keep things simple. And we're going to add a placeholder link, which we can do by just adding a hash symbol. That hash symbol can then be replaced later with real URLs when you're ready to go live. All right, so let's close that out. That's our first link is ready to go. Let's add a couple of extras so it's more like a proper menu. So we're going to select the home item and we're just going to right click and duplicate it. We'll come down to the timeline here. We're going to rename this layer. We're going to call it About. We'll come into the content section. We'll change the content so that it also says About. And now we want to select the item again, and we're just going to use the arrows on your keyboard to move this into a better position. Hold down Shift and hit the down arrow key to move it 10 pixels. We are going to move it down 50 pixels. So we'll hold down Shift and hit the down arrow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And then we'll just have one more button. So let's right click that one again, duplicate, and we'll go through the same process. We'll double click down on the timeline to rename and we'll call this one Contact. We'll change the content to read Contact. And now make sure that's selected. Hold down Shift and hit the down arrow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So now that's just about right. The only thing we need to tweak here is that we've got a little bit less space at the bottom of our group than we do at the top. So we're just going to increase the height of our group. So we'll select the group, choose size and position, and we're going to increase the height over here to 190 pixels. All right, now because the smaller sizes are all going to inherit everything that we just did, if we save and preview, we're going to see a nice drop-down menu on every different one of our sizes. So that is our vertical menu all done and good to go. Now we can create our horizontal menu that's going to show in desktop mode. So for that to happen, the first thing that we need to do is make sure that this menu does not appear in desktop mode. So we're going to select it and then go to visibility and turn it off on desktop mode. Now with it still selected, we're going to right click and duplicate so that we get all of our menu items recreated. We don't have to make them all over again. Let's just collapse these to make some space. So now we can rename this layer and we're going to call it horizontal menu. And then with the visibility pane still open, we're going to turn this one back on for desktop mode and we're going to turn the other three off. Now we want to put all three of these menu items inside the horizontal menu all in a line so that they're horizontal instead of vertical. To make that process easy, we're just going to use the shift button and arrow keys again. Helps us to make sure that we're keeping everything in line. So let's move the about link up until it lines up with home. And then we're going to move it across until it looks like there's about the same amount of space in between these two items as there is the edge. So right now that looks like there's probably a little bit less space. Let's just move that across one more round of 10 pixels. That looks about right. Now we'll do the same thing for our contact button, holding down shift and hit the arrow key until we get it in line with the other two items. And then across to the right until it looks like we have about an even amount of space. Now we're going to want this group to sit up here inside our header, which means we want it to be the same height as the header. So let's select it and we're going to go into the size and position area again. And now we're going to change the height to 65 pixels to match our header. Now you'll notice here that our menu items are now a bit out of line. So let's just select each one of them and vertically align them. This is another one of the reasons that we're using a group, because it gives us something to align all of our items relative to. So these are vertically centered now relative to the group that they're sitting inside of. So groups are a really helpful tool for alignment. And now because we only need about this much space to fit these items into the header, we don't need all of this width. So we're going to make sure we have a horizontal menu selected. And then we're just going to drag in this right edge. And now what we want is once again to make sure that there's about an even amount of space. So we want the space here on this right side to roughly match this space and this space. Okay, so now we want our menu to be positioned up in the top right corner. So all we need to do is hit the right align button and the top align button, and now it's in the correct location. And just for good measure, because we already have a blue background on our header group, we don't really need a blue background on the horizontal menu group as well. So we're going to go into Style, into our BG color, and we're going to clear this color to turn it back into a transparent group. All right, so now let's save and preview. Okay, so there's our horizontal menu in our desktop mode, and we have our vertical menu in our notebook, tablet, and mobile mode. That's the first two steps done. Those two steps are the longest steps. Steps 3 and 4 are pretty quick. In step 3, we're going to add animation to our vertical menu so that it can animate its way open and animate its way closed. The largest size that we have our vertical menu on is the notebook size, so we're going to switch into that. We're going to select the vertical menu group, go into the animation section, and there's already a pre-built animation that you can just apply to this that will handle opening up the vertical menu automatically for you. So go to this In button here and hit the drop down. And then in here, we're looking for masked transitions. So click that to open it. And now what we want to use is slide from the top. And you can see how that makes the whole menu just slide down from the top, and it fades it in really smoothly as well. If you want to see that play again, just move your cursor off that item and back onto it. So we're just going to click that, and now that animation is applied. And if we hit the play button here, we can preview that animation running. Now there's only one thing that we want to change here. Because we're using this to reveal a navigation item, we want it to be fairly snappy. We want the animation to run long enough that it doesn't look rushed, but we also want to give people what they're looking for without making them feel like they have to wait. Right now our duration setting down here is 1200, which is represented up here in the basics panel as well. We're going to reduce that down to 800, and that's just going to make that reveal animation just a little bit snappier. So that handles the open animation. We're also going to need a close animation to hide the menu again. So to do that, what we can do is locate our layer on the timeline and then go up to the end here and click the out animation. That will turn it blue, and that's when you know that you have it properly selected. And then all we want to do is reverse that opening animation. So we can come up into the basics section and you'll see we have this item here, reverse in. So that just plays our opening animation backwards. So we're going to turn that on. And then we want the duration to match the duration of our in animation. Right now it's set to 300. We want to change that to 800. So now the animation being played in reverse, you see it slide up and go away, is going to take the same amount of time as the animation opening. So that is step 3 handled. We've got our animations in place, and now all we need to do is step 4, where we connect our burger icon to the vertical menu and make it trigger that opening animation. Okay, so let's select the burger icon. If you're having trouble selecting it up here, you can actually just come down into your timeline, expand the header, and then select the burger button directly from the timeline here. Now we're going to go to actions. We're going to add a new action by clicking this button here. You'll see that it has already added a click interaction for us, which is exactly what we want. When we click on the burger icon, it opens up the menu. But we're going to change the action type from simple link, and we're going to scroll down and we're going to choose toggle first or last frame. And what toggle first or last frame does is every time you click the button that you're adding this action to, it triggers another layer to play either its in animation or its out animation. So with our vertical menu, we've set up our in animation to show the menu, and we've set up our out animation to hide the menu. So this toggle is going to switch between those animations to create the opening and closing effect. So now what we need to do is target the correct layer. So we have this target layer box here. We'll hit this drop down and it's going to show us all the layers that we have in our module. We want to animate our vertical menu. So we'll select our vertical menu here. And you can see that that has worked because in the background, you'll notice that a pink highlight was added around where our vertical menu is. You've got the pink highlight around the button as well, so that shows that these two are connected. So now we'll close out of that, and that is everything that you need to do to make this work. So let's save, and we will preview. And now when we click our button, there's our opening animation. So that toggle has jumped straight to that first frame of our layer and played the opening animation. Now, when we hit the button again, it's going to jump straight to the out animation of our layer and it plays that closing animation. And now that is going to be the same on every one of our sizes here, except of course, our desktop size where we have hidden these elements. Now there's one more little tweak that we need to make here. If you watch closely when I close this vertical menu, for a moment you'll see a sort of a flash on the menu items. There you go, did you see that? I'll just show you one more time. You'll see them just briefly fade out for a second. And the reason that's happening is because each of our menu items has this really short little fade animation applied to it by default. So what we need to do is just eliminate all animation on those text layers. Now we could have actually done this at the start of the process when we were creating our menu items, but I wanted you to see that effect first so that if you come across it when you're making your own modules, you know what's going on and you know how to correct it. So I'm going to select the in animation of one of our menu items here, and I'm going to come up to the in animation drop down. Let me just collapse this from before. I'm going to go into simple transitions and set it to no animation. And then do the same thing for our other menu items. So same again, in simple transitions, no animation. And then for our third one as well, in simple transitions, no animation. Now we'll save and preview. Open up the menu and close it. And now we don't have that brief flash of the menu item just fading out for a second. And that is now our completed hamburger menu. So to recap, we've got our desktop layout done with a regular header, a site title that's aligned on the left, and a normal horizontal menu on the right. And then in our other views, we have an automatically adjusting layout with a centered site title and an expanding and collapsing hamburger menu that works on all three of our mobile device preview sizes. So that is just one example of the kind of rich interactive content that you can make using Slider Revolution without needing to write a single line of code, everything done with a visual interface and without needing any prior experience. Anybody can learn how to use this tool to make any kind of website that they like. Alright, so I hope that comes in really handy for the next website that you're working on. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and I will see you in the next one.
Start your Slider Revolution 6 experience now, the world's most powerful WordPress builder.